Hello again, everyone, and welcome to One on One. I'm Martin False. When we come back from the break, one of the best principals around. But how did she get there? We're going to find out a very interesting story when we come back. Who is she? You'll have to wait and see. Don't go away.
One on One is brought to you by the Law Office of Waits and Downer.
So, Michelle, let's start off. First of all, welcome.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being here. Took us a while to get you here. So I can tell you weren't dying to walk in the door and sit down and do a one-on-one. But that's your personality. So earliest years you could remember, can you take me back? Where were they? And sort of describe in your mind what you remember.
I would think earliest memories. I had a wonderful childhood, and my parents just made growing up in our home so much fun. But the other day we were actually talking about this. I remembered leaving Baton Rouge. My dad was in law school, and I remembered seeing Mike the Tiger in the cage and knowing we were leaving Baton Rouge and not coming back. And then probably fast forward a couple years after that, my sister Lisa is a year older than me, and she went off to kindergarten, and I was devastated because we played all day together. But she would come home every day, and she would teach me everything she learned in kindergarten. So I started kindergarten at 4, but I was really ready for first grade, I think. So just great childhood memories. My mom was a first grade teacher, my grandmother a third grade teacher. So I think I was born with chalk in my hand. There's nothing that I ever wanted to do other than teach or
So
play
you were
school.
destined to be a principal, which
I don't know
we'll get
about
to later.
that. I don't know. Like I just said, I had a very strict principal. I thought principals were unhappy and mean and didn't like their job. So I don't know if I ever thought I would be a
Well,
principal.
every time I see you, you're smiling. So
Well, I'm
that's a good
blessed.
thing.
I do love my job.
In your first answer, you told me you were sort of maybe a couple of years ahead of where you should be scholastically. Did that come from the prepping that your parents gave you, or were you just naturally gifted?
I think it came naturally. I think probably inherited from mom and dad, and I don't remember having to study hard or try. So I was very blessed in that, but it helped me also to tutor other people, which I think I knew early on. I loved that. I loved seeing the light bulb go on when I helped friends with schoolwork. Challenged, of course, when I got to honors courses and then in college, but it came naturally.
Do you remember your first day at school?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I went to St. Genevieve Elementary. Carolyn Capel was my principal, such a wonderful mentor in my life. And I remember the first day of school, met my 2 best friends there. We still have almost a daily group chat with high school friends, elementary friends. So in those days, St. Genevieve had 1 section of every grade level. So we were actually very, very close as a school community. We were a very small school, and we knew everybody in every grade level. So I remember so much from kindergarten through 7th grade. Great memories at St. Genevieve.
I remember grammar school. There's so much pressure on you to grow up, not like there is today.
Right.
You grew up in an era where we didn't have cell phones. You got home, you actually could sit across a table and talk to someone, or your parents could ask you a question and you weren't.
Right.
A little different.
Very different.
Yeah.
Very different.
What did that do for you, I guess, emotionally, mentally, and in your growing ages to be able to communicate?
I think first of all, we played every day. We played outside. I grew up on Ash Street, right off Tiger Drive, and we probably had 30 or 40 kids in that one street. And we had so much fun every day playing. We hated when the winter came and we had to come in earlier because it was dark. So I think we learned a lot competing. We played games. We picked teams. You wanted to be on a certain team, and just so many little life lessons in all of those games. Sundays were absolutely about church, going to my grandmother's house, eating lunch. We all ate at the table, the kids playing outside. But sitting around and hearing adult conversation, I knew a lot about my grandparents. I knew a lot about their parents, and that was just from hearing stories, which I think often we've lost that art of just being patient and sitting and listening and learning about the past, from our relatives. Not long ago, one of my children actually told my husband and I, she said, I wish I had lived during times of landlines. And I thought that was huge for a young person to say that. But I think she even realized how there's so much emphasis on everything else but the present. With cell phones, you can be aware of other people's lives. Without all of that and social media, all you knew was the conversation you were having or the people that were in your life. So it was really a great time to grow up.
To even know what a landline was is incredible. I remember we had to pick up the phone in the house, and if somebody was on it in the early day, we'd have to politely, Mom always said, if you pick up the phone and somebody's on it, politely hang up. But we always thought there's somebody while we're on the phone that's
Could be
Miss
listening.
Kravitz across the street
Yes.
listening in.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
I adored knowing about my grandparents.
Me too.
I sense you're the same way.
I was so blessed. I was 35 years old when I lost my first grandparent, my dad's dad. And then all four died within 2 years. They had all been married almost 64 years. And I really think they died of broken hearts, being without each other. So to be, that old, I guess, 35, and just have them in my life, they knew my children. They helped babysit my children. But I loved just spending time with them, and each of them, and I'm the eulogizer of the family, so I inherited that. But in giving the eulogies for them, it forced me to go back and just look at all these life lessons that they taught me. And they didn't sit down and say, Michelle, listen, I'm about to tell you something. It's just the way they lived. And I tell this story all the time. I remember my grandfather one time, I used to bring my grandmother to some doctor appointments, and they had this old blue two-tone Ford LTD. The door, we opened it, it almost went all the way around. And I said, Gramps, do y'all want a new car? Do you think you ought to get a new car? And he looked at me in amazement and he said, well, this one works.
Right.
Like, why would I get a new car? It was
Still
20-something years old, but it works. And things like that. It just they were so practical. It made so much sense. And, live within your means and don't wish for more.
The good old times. It was simple, and I don't say simple in a derogatory way. They were simple.
Simple.
When did we're going to get to your husband, but first of all, how many kids do y'all have?
We have 3 children. Our son Grant is about to turn 30, and we have a daughter Claire. She will turn 27, and our baby Mary Grace. She will turn 22 on Mardi Gras Day.
Not a baby.
Not a baby, no.
Still call her the baby.
She is. She's our Tootie Talk. Yes, she graduates from college in May.
Oh, that's fantastic. So when did you know, when you were going through grammar school and then later high school, when was it hitting you that, hey, I want to be in education?
I think I always knew, and every year in grammar school, I wanted to teach that grade. So I wanted to be a first grade teacher to teach students how to read. And then when I had Miss Harris in 3rd grade and learned cursive writing, I absolutely wanted to teach 3rd grade and cursive writing. So it just progressed. And by high school, I knew that I wanted to be a secondary education major, and did that and went to LSU. I was one of the few who did not have Gary Phillips in high school.
Really?
So I missed out on the Gary Phillips mark of American history. But I think that forced me or led me to major in social studies education because I wanted to be a teacher like him. I heard the stories. My sister had him. And so I majored in social studies with a minor in English.
What was it about him that I guess mimic would be a good word? What did you want to mimic?
That it was a story, and that our history was not something to memorize and regurgitate, but that it was it was a repetitive story too. Let's learn from the lessons. Let's learn from the people who sacrificed so much to build our nation and just provide all the freedoms that we have. And he was so passionate about it. So that is really, I think, what inspired me.
Yeah, and you just gave me another name for another one-on-one. Well, it's funny how on this show, everybody mentions a name who encouraged them or inspired them, and that's our next one-on-one.
Yes.
So as you were moving through the ranks, y'all had so many tremendous teachers along the way, and Thibodeau's just such a tight-knit, everybody knows everybody, and everybody knows what everybody's doing. Did you sense that all the way through?
Yes. It first of all, Edie White is a product of Thibodeau College in Mount Carmel. So we're at the point where we've had 4 and 5 generations of families there. So there is so much love and support for this school. So that really makes it a blessing, because when whatever we need in terms of just manpower, volunteering, prayers, people are there. So that has helped. The faculty, our longevity is incredible. I think the average right now for teachers like 21, 22 years at the school. So we have very little turnover. When I came back to teach at Edie White in 1991, almost half of the faculty had taught me and was there. So that was fun, being a colleague with many of the people that taught me or served as mentors for me.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
Every time I visit Edie White or I go cover a Coach Zush ceremony or I go cover something of Edie White, they're all there. And I don't know, what is it? How does that happen? What's the secret? Give us the Edie White secret.
I would say absolutely, without a doubt, the charism of the Brothers of the Sacred Heart and the Sisters of Mount Carmel are so rooted in our school, and there is such a presence of, the Holy Spirit and of course God, but their way. The sisters, it's always been about prayer and deeply rooted in prayer and scripture. The brothers, there are 4 pillars that we talk about all the time: personal attention. And that was them. They knew their students by name. And you need to know more about your student than just his role in your classroom. And we still pride ourselves on that. Religious formation has to be at the heart of our school, and I think it is. That is our mission, to be countercultural. I can't say that enough. In the old days, you were countercultural if you went against the church. Now, the church is countercultural. So we may be the only voice that students hear saying, this is not right, or this is the right way to live. So religious formation, academic excellence, that has to be a part of it. Parents want their children to get a good education, to have the skills to move on to college or not, or the workforce. And then friendly discipline. People don't understand that. They think it's an oxymoron sometimes, but
That's true.
we have very high expectations for our students, very high. I visited some classes recently to remind them of that. And there will be consequences when they don't meet those, but we move on. And that's a big part of who we are. How do we rebuild the relationship that was broken? How do we move on? So all of those components working together, it has just created bonds, among our alumni base, among former faculty members, current faculty members. So I don't know if there's one secret. I think it's just the whole pot.
Friendly discipline. That rings a bell. When you said it, I got it. But until you said it, I never really thought of it that way.
There was a name for it.
They were
right?
tough. The brothers were tough, but they weren't over the top. That's a good word, good couple of words. So let me ask you, I've had several people that I've run into over the years that told me, Martin, I was in the seminary for a while, or I thought about being a nun. Did you ever think about it?
Actually of course, we had presentations, we were taught about vocations, but I think motherhood was just always, always, always in my heart. And, I had babies, we'd play, from 3 years old up. If you talk about memories, I remember rocking my baby. And I thought I was married to Donny Osmond when I was little. And so, I would rock my baby and we'd watch Donny Osmond on TV.
Yeah.
So I don't,
That was
it would have been difficult for me, right, to give up motherhood.
So Donny Osmond's
Donny
the reason you
Osmond.
never even thought about
Absolutely.
it. Incredible.
Really, his twin brother Johnny, my sister decided her boyfriend was Donny Osmond, so she created a twin called Johnny. Yeah.
Wow, that's
Johnny
incredible. But I've said it so many times, I had 3 aunts that were nuns in Mount Carmel.
Mm-hmm.
My mom could have been a nun. I'm glad she wasn't because she had a large
Mm-hmm.
family. But it seems to me you had all the qualifications to do a lot of things. Were you always that versatile?
I guess one of the things and it's funny when you say that because I caught a lot of grief majoring in education in high school. And when I was a junior one time, we had to write a paper on our career path. And I wrote about wanting to be a teacher, and my classmates fell out and were very open and said, "Are you kidding?" Because I had never made a B yet. And they just knew I needed to be a doctor or something that, would generate all this money. I remember just being so embarrassed as I was given this speech. And my teacher, who was absolutely one of my mentors, Miss Jeanette Labatt, she slammed her hand on the desk and she said, "And who do y'all think is teaching you right now? And who do you want teaching you?"
Good point.
And so she just came in and saved the day and just kind of reaffirmed my decision for me. But having my mom, who is the ultimate organizer, from Ziploc bags to, freezer tape, containers, just list of lists, probably inherited a little bit about that. But I think my most comfortable role was always vice president, second in command. Like I loved when I was academic assistant principal, and that role, you really run the school. I pray for Chris Guyot's health more than anybody else because that person is in charge of scheduling, just the everyday invisible parts of running the school. So I think that gives me the greatest.
Why did you enjoy being second in charge more than principal? Is it you felt like you were more of the people behind the scenes kind of person than the person to have to bring the parents in and talk about something that went wrong?
It's interesting. Well, first of all, I wouldn't be on this show, you see, if I was the academic assistant principal.
Maybe you would.
I don't know. I don't know. Initially, I used to say I preferred speaking to 1,000 people rather than that confrontational conversation. But I can tell you, it's been 12 years that I've been principal, and I am the biggest fan of one-on-one conversations now. With email and with just different types of communication, we've lost that. And you can pick up on something in an email, you read it the way you read it, or even a telephone conversation. But I love meeting with parents now, students, teachers, because once you make that human connection, you can see facial expressions, then you realize, okay, this person is coming from a place of frustration with his or her child and in their family, the teacher too. And it gives you more empathy, and it's just the way to handle and settle any type of conflict.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. This one-on-one program has been brought to you by the law offices of Waits and Downer.